Hey everybody, today we will be talking about branding our apps. So essentially what we are going to do is we are going to go step by step through the branding process, which means laying out our app's purpose, our mission statement, our vision statement, our target market, creating a name for our app, and then generating related words that could market to our audience. So to start off, this is an example app that I am creating, and we are basically taking this app idea through the program, through these example lectures. So my idea and my app idea is very simple. Many people have had it before, so that's why it's not really something I'm taking seriously. But essentially, I would like to create an app to check on your emotional and physical well-being at the beginning and end of each day. The goal of this app is to provide a daily reminder that your health matters. The app will track your well-being and determines trends in your health. And so what I did is I took this purpose statement, I generated my target market because honestly, I want to target young professionals. I feel like young professionals are the ones who will use these apps the most because in terms of health and mental health, this is a generation, the younger generations are more on top of this and more likely to use online programs and resources to be able to assess their health. And in addition to that, younger generations are the young professionals, 20-year-olds through 30-year-olds, are entering into adulthood, which is a phase of your life, a long phase of your life, where health becomes your main priority. These are the ages when you start to recognize that your body has physical limits, and you're either trying to push those physical limits or trying to keep your capacity. So our target market is young professionals. We have our purpose statement. What I've done is I took this purpose statement and I copy and pasted it into ChatGPT. And I said, write a mission statement for the app below. And ChatGPT determined this mission statement. Empowering you to prioritize your health, our app offers daily check-ins to nurture both your emotional and physical well-being. By tracking and reflecting on how you feel at the start and end of each day, we help you uncover trends and patterns in your health journey, reminding you that self-care is vital for living your best life. Now, this sounds way better than my purpose statement that I had written previously. To follow that up, I had ChatGPT create a vision statement. The difference between a vision statement and a mission statement is that a mission statement addresses your main primary concern as a company, while the vision statement is more or less the hypothetical future that you envision the world takes on in using your application or using your product. So ChatGPT wrote this wonderful vision statement. I'm not going to read it out loud, but both of these I wrote down into my document here. Now, in addition to that, I thought it was very helpful to come up with some related words that could apply to our purpose and our mission. So I had ChatGPT, I said, ChatGPT, give me 50 related words to the above mission, which can be used to market it with. And here are the 50 words. It's quite a few. So I had ChatGPT, delimit the above list. What comma delimiting is it means taking this list and separating each item in the list with a comma and a space. So here we have the comma delimited list, which is a list which is spaced out with commas and spaces. And then I copy and pasted that into my document. When building your brand, the name is exceptionally important, not just because you want it to be relevant to what you're selling, but also because you want it to be catchy and memorable. In addition to that, you want to make sure that your domain is available for the name that you choose, especially if you're building a piece of software or an app. The domain name is the name that you type in on the internet, your www, etc. and you go through a domain registrar like Namecheap, which is this site here, to register that. So when choosing a name for your company, I personally like to come to Namecheap to check if the name is available. There are a couple different options that Namecheap gives you in terms of searching for a domain. And for the purpose of this activity and this project, I'm going to name my company MindBody. Now, I know that MindBody must exist, so let's go ahead and check. If I type in MindBody and I search, as you can see, mindbody.com is already taken. Mindbody.ai is available, but at an insane price. There is mindbody.gg that is available for $68, but the ideal and typical price for a domain is around $12 per year. $70 per year is very expensive, and thousands of dollars is only for very high in demand domains. So we have XYZ for, again, a ridiculous amount of money. $1,000 for our mindbody.inc. However, if we scroll down, you can see that there is an option for mindbody.name. This will most likely be the domain that I purchased for this example in the long run. However, this site is really great when it comes to searching for your company name's availability. Now, when you're creating a company name, you can always add a suffix to your idea, right? To your company name. So I could call this MindBody LLC. And you just have to make sure that your clients remember to look up MindBody LLC. Or, for example, MindBody Tech. MindBodyTech.com is available. However, it's available for a very expensive price. Trying different versions of your name is a great idea. Another idea for when you're trying to find your company and your brand's name is to use the Namecheap Beast mode. What this allows you to do is enter any set of keywords to match and find the ultimate domain. So one of the things that we did was generate a bunch of related words. What we can do is copy and paste these domain keywords into our keyword section here. And then we can give it a price range. We want something that is $20 maximum. Now, in addition to that, we can add in a tech suffix like ly, right? So in this case, it would be balancely, or we could do all of these prefixes, right? Try wellness or trymindfulness.com. And so this gives you the option to add these prefixes, and when the system checks for your domain, it'll also check by adding these prefixes and suffixes to your keywords and see if those are also available. Now, in addition, Namecheap allows you to specify the TLDs or the extensions that you see on the internet. For example, .com. So we could add .com on there. And I believe here, it should be here. .com is down there. We can also select maybe .io or .tech. All of these sound very legitimate for what we are building. I'm sure that there's even a health. There is a .health. And so now that we have our TLDs selected, which we have 4 selected, now we can hit generate. We haven't added in our keywords yet. Here are our keywords, or they disappeared. Here are our keywords. Let's not show premiums. Well, we can show premiums. Let's hide unavailable. So it's only showing us the ones that are available. And here we can see the wellness.health is available. Wellnessly.health is available. And this is basically going through, it's adding our prefixes like the or try, or our suffixes like ly to our keywords, and it's finding and it's checking with all of the TLDs that we've selected. And as you can see, it gives us our yearly price and it gives us the retail price. So one thing to note is that the price per year is for the first year. And after that, they'll start charging you the retail price. After choosing a brand name, the next step is to choose a color palette associated with your company or your brand. So what I always recommend is to go to coolors.co or coolors.co. This is a great resource that is free to use, which is a color generator. They have a variety of different options for tools like a palette generator, a image picker, contrast checker, etc. So if we hit start generator, it'll immediately give us this color palette. And to change the color palette to a different set of colors, we press the space bar. So if I press the space bar, it'll give me another set of colors. We can keep doing this until we find a color that we like. For example, tropical indigo. And say I like tropical indigo and I want to keep it, I can go ahead and toggle the lock like that to hold it down so that when I press space again, it's kept. So we can keep searching and say I like robin blue egg. Now say I want to switch around this color palette because I want the color that I've locked to be the first one. I can use this drag item and drag my other colors away. So now we have our two locked colors. Now for this project, I've actually already selected a color palette and it is this one. I really like this batch of colors and it came pretty quickly. And one of the things that you can look at is you can hit this button right here to view shades. So you can see all of the shades associated with this color. Same thing with each one of these. And so if you like another one of these colors better, like I kind of like mint green. No, I like this color just as much. And we can rearrange our color palette. And so this would be my color palette moving forward. These are the hexadecimal values associated with the color. And if you want to change that to a different format, you can change it to RGB. I find that hexadecimal are easiest to work with and are compatible with the program that I've created to extract our shades. And more on that next. After selecting our colors, we are going to make sure that Git is installed so that we can download and upload code between our GitHub repositories. So GitHub allows us to store our code on the cloud, and what Git does is it allows us to control our versions of that code and how we download it onto our computer. So to check if you have Git installed, this is a great instruction guide. It says git-scm.com is the URL to visit, and this will essentially allow you to check if you have it installed and install it if you do not already. If you need any help with this, please let me know, but we are going to move on to the next step, assuming that you have installed Git, which was not given in the previous video, so please make sure that you install that yourself. After we have determined our color palette, we want to check to make sure that our computer is set up well for Code Foundry. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to our file system and go to our documents folder. And what I recommend is that everybody create a new folder called Code Foundry. And inside of Code Foundry, create a new folder called Resources. And in Resources, once you have this, I want you to go to Visual Studio Code. So open up Visual Studio Code. You should already have that installed from the first video that we published on setting up your creator workspace. So now that Visual Studio Code is installed and opened, we're going to go to File, Open Folder, and we're going to open the new folder that we've created. So Documents, Code Foundry, Resources. We're going to hit Open. And now, when we click this button up here in the top right, it says toggle panel, or hit Command J on Windows. That might be Control J, but I'm not too sure. It should pull up a terminal window like this. Now to check if you have Git installed, go ahead and type in git-v like that and hit enter. And this should show you the version of Git that you are running. I'm currently running version 2.39.3. Now, with Git being confirmed to be installed, we can move on to the next step. If Git hasn't been installed and it throws an error, please return to the last step, which is installing Git. And if you run into any issues, please message me on Discord or email me at hispanichackersboard@gmail.com. Now, we are going to go ahead and type in git clone. And then what we want to do is we want to go back to our internet browser, go to github.com/Hispanic Hackers, just like this. Now this will pull up the Hispanic Hackers GitHub page, and you can go down and find this repository by going to Repositories, Code Foundry. So we want to open up our Code Foundry repository. Now we are going to download the code that is in the Code Foundry repository by hitting our code button here and then hitting copy URL to clipboard. So now we have this URL for our Code Foundry project. To download our Code Foundry project onto our computer, we are going to go to our VS Code. We are going to make sure that we are in our resources folder. It should say something like this with resources being stated in the file as the file that we have open. And then we are going to go to, up here it also says folders, resources. Up here we are going to go and hit git clone and then paste in that URL that we just copied and hit enter. Now it's going to clone our repository called Code Foundry, and in it you will find a fall 2024 folder with a Python script called Color Palette Generator. Now that we have this Python file downloaded, we should check that we have Python properly installed on our system. So to check that, you want to type in Python 3 dash uppercase V. Uppercase is very important in this situation. So we hit enter and we get the Python version. Now if that comes up to be an error, please reference the last video where we downloaded and installed Python. And if you have any further issues, please contact me. So we have Python installed. Now what we want to do is we want to make sure that we have the Python toolkit installed on our VS Code. So what you'll want to do is come to extensions, type in Python, and then come to our Python extension here, and here it'll give you an option to install. So I want you to hit install. Right now mine is already installed. Once you have installed the Python extension for VS Code, go ahead and click out of there. You should have this run button in the top right hand corner. If you don't have that, I would say first thing is try exiting out of your Visual Studio Code by completely quitting, and then opening up Visual Studio Code again, going to File, Open Folder, and finding your folder. The second option would be to go ahead and use the command line to run Python 3 with the name of the file. So in this case, we are in the resources folder in our command line, but you can run the program by typing in Python 3, and then from our resources folder, we want to go to Code Foundry / fall 2024. Now, one thing to note is that there's a space in fall 2024, so we want to put quotations around it. Whenever you're using a file name with a space in it, you have to have quotations around it. And now in fall 2024, we want to go to our file color palette generator.py. So this is how you would type out to run the Python code from your resources folder in the command line. So we can go ahead and do that. If not, it's easier to just hit the run Python file button. So if we hit enter, it will say, welcome to color palette generator. Prepare your colors in hexadecimal format. Suggestion to use the tool that we did, which is coolers. Enter a hexadecimal color value or enter an empty line to end. So what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to come to our coolers color palette, copy our hexadecimal color. We can come up here and click copy hex, and then we are going to come back to VS Code and we are going to paste it into the hexadecimal color option. And then we're going to give this color a name. So I'm calling mine red. You're going to want to do this with every single one of your colors. So I've gone ahead and added in all of my hexadecimal colors. Some things to note are the fact that some of my hexadecimal colors start with the hexadecimal £, and some don't. The program will take either type of hexadecimal format. In addition to that, you could enter in hexadecimals as lowercase or uppercase if we wanted to do that. The other thing to note is that I am entering in 000 as my grayscale. So what this will do is this will create a black color, and it will submit it as black but have a whole grayscale associated with it when it creates my shades, and you'll see that in a sec. So I'm going to enter an empty line to end like that, and then it says and hit enter to get the results. So I hit enter. Now this creates a table, and this table is kind of hard to see because it new lines over. If we get rid of our folders like that, now you can see the table more clearly. Now each one of these values in my table are a shade of the color that we've specified. So red has all of these shades. This is the main shade, is the shade that we gave it specifically. The base shade is the shade that is designated at the 0.5 position of our color table. So our base shade is kind of the mid shade of our shading here, of our shade gradient, and then our main is the color that we gave it. So now to export this, we can hit E, and there are a couple different options for exporting. We can enter 1 for a text file, we can enter 2 for a CSV, we can enter 3 for an SVG, and we can enter 4 for Figma variables. What I'm going to do is I'm going to actually do each one of these, starting with 1. So I'm going to enter in 1, and it asks me what I would like to name the file. I'm going to call it mind body colors, and then hit enter. Now if we go into our folder for resources, you can see that it has generated our text file with our colors. Next, I'm going to export and hit E again to export our next version, which is going to be a CSV file. So I'm going to hit 2, and I again am going to call it mind body colors. The reason why is that it's just going to be a different file format, so it's going to have a .csv. So now we have .csv. Next, I'm going to hit E again, and I'm going to hit 3 to download the scalable vector graphic version. I'm going to call it mind body colors again. And then for the fourth one, I'm going to do the Figma variables, which are not important right now, but they will be in the next week. So colors, and I'm going to hit enter, and now I have a zip file with my colors. So now I can hit enter to end the program and I exit. I can hit the trash button to kill the terminal because we have everything that we need right here in all of these files. So this CSV can be uploaded into Excel to have an Excel spreadsheet of all of your colors. This file right here is a zip file with files for Figma. This here is the text file with our table on it. And this is the SVG. What we are going to do with our SVG is we are going to find it in our documents folder first. So for me, I go to my documents folder, Code Foundry, resources. This is the file that we downloaded from GitHub, and then fall 2024, and this is where my SVG is. Now, there are a couple different ways to do this. If you double click on it, most likely it's going to open up in a web browser. For example, Firefox. And it's going to look a lot like this. What you can do is you can zoom out and then go ahead and take a screenshot. Or you can also open up the file using Inkscape, which is my default. To do so, you should be able to right click on it and go to where it says open with and then hit Inkscape. And I believe that this option is also available for Windows. Now when you open up Inkscape, this window should show up, which has our SVG on it. To export this SVG, which SVG is a specific kind of graphics file that we can edit in Inkscape, what we're going to do is we're going to come into the export section. So export is here, up here. We could also go file, export. I actually recommend doing file, export. And then that should bring you to this panel, I believe. And now, down here, there's the option to export as a PNG. So we're going to change it from a SVG into a PNG and hit export. Make sure that you keep note of where it exports to. So in this case, it's exporting to our Code Foundry Fall 2024 folder. Now you're going to go to the folder that it says it's exporting to, which is down here. You can close without saving. And now we have our PNG version, which looks like this. What we're going to do is we are going to drag and drop that into our branding page. Just like that. And now we have our color palette for our project. The next step to designing our brand will be to choose a font for our icon / logo that we create, and just a font to represent our company in general. So for that, I recommend that you go to fonts.google.com for open source fonts. Open source means that they're free to use and also to modify. So for our brand, we want something that's going to be maybe kind of playful, but not so playful, right? We don't want something that's going to be too intense. But there's a lot of different feelings on here that you can choose from. You can also choose what the appearance is that you're looking for. And then in terms of actual design terminology, you can choose versions of serif, versions of sans serif, and then other properties involved. So I kind of liked this down here, this font, but I also wanted to test out the font before I actually use it. So when you're on this fonts page, what we can do is we can go ahead and set the typeface preview in this corner right here. So it says type something. I'm going to type my company name, which is MindBody. MindBody, I really like how MindBody is looking in this font here. But again, I would recommend going through all the fonts and seeing which ones look the best. These fonts down here are kind of overly expressive. If you want something calmer, you can use a calmer font. These look more professional, but they're not as playful. Another thing to look at is your target market. Right now, I am looking for a target market of young professionals. So this font might not be the best because although it looks fun and playful, it's also not very professional. So I'm going to keep looking. At the end of the day, I really like this font, Ramaraja, which has a clean appearance, but it uses kind of a professional serif typeface, and it comes in regular font only. Oh no, yeah, regular font only. So this will be great for my logo. However, it might not be the greatest for developing specifically with, because development will require that I have not just a regular typeface, but also a bold and a light, or different font widths or weights. So in that case, we're going to download this, and then I'm going to use an open source popular font for kind of developing my app. But if you want to develop your app with the typeface that you've chosen, such as this one, you can also do that. So I'm going to hit Get Font, and I'm going to download my font. After downloading, I'm going to want to go to my downloads, where I have my font zip, unzip it, open it, and then you see you have a .ttf file. Go ahead and double click on that file to install the font. So I'm going to go ahead and install. For Windows, it should work the same way. Now the font should be installed. If I want to share my font, say with the rest of my team, I could easily share this zip file or the TTF file itself. Now that we have our color palette, our company name, and our font selected, as well as other brand characteristics, it's time to start on our logo. So to start on our logo, go to Inkscape, and in Inkscape, select the file or document size that you prefer. I usually just go with US letter landscape, and that just brings up the document of that size. So if I open up that document, this is what it'll look like. This is what Inkscape looks like. Up top, we have a bunch of system level tools. On the left, we have some design tools, and on the right, we have our design panel. At the bottom, we have our color set. So this set of colors has a bunch of different colors to choose from, and if you come into our panel on the side here, we will also be able to manipulate and change the colors with the fill and stroke properties. So some basic Inkscape tools. Right now I'm using the mouse. The mouse allows you to select and click. There is also the rectangle tool, which will allow you to create rectangles. You can change the radius of your corners by clicking and dragging the top right node like that. In addition to the rectangle tool, you have the ellipse or circle tool, and say you create an ellipse but you want it to be a perfect circle, you can define the radii of both the X and Y axes to determine the shape. So if I give it equal radiuses or radii, it'll turn out to be a circle. But if I give more of a X radius, say 5, it'll look more like an ellipse, but a horizontal ellipse. As you can see, when I click on the circle tool or the rectangle tool or any of these tools, there are some parameters that we can change up here at the top that'll give us more manipulation ability, as well as the sides of this shape that we can manipulate ourselves. In addition to these tools, there is the pen tool. The pen tool allows you to create nodes, lines, and curves, Bezier curves, which in order to create a curve, you can click to create a node, hold down and drag. So when I drag, where I drag is going to determine the size and the shape of the curve. And this is something that's kind of tricky, but you have to get used to, because it manipulates how the curve looks or the line looks at the next point. So you kind of have to get used to this. It took me a while to get used to this method of creating graphics. But this would be a Bezier curve. To turn it into a shape, you just have to complete the path. And when you complete the path, it turns into a shape. Right now it is filling with, as you can see, this hexadecimal shows you 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, which is black, and then there are two F's at the end. What these two F's stand for is the opacity. So right now, FF means full opacity. If we go 0, 0, it's 0 opacity, meaning that it is not opaque, it's transparent. So some number in between, like AA, will give you some level of opacity in between. So say we want the opacity, and the opacity scales from 0 to 255 in hexadecimal format. If you're confused by that, just try playing around with it. You can use numbers from 0 to 9, and characters from A to F. So in this case, we can try, say, 7, 7, and you can see it changes the opacity. We can also change the actual color by selecting by giving it a different hexadecimal. So that is how that works. Now I will be providing a video on how to use Inkscape separately, but what I'm going to do for the rest of this activity is, in this video, is I'm going to design my logo, and I'm going to speed it up so that y'all can watch. One other thing to note is that my font will be automatically loaded from the system into my font options here. So if I type in my new font, Ramaraja, you can see that it pops up. So without further ado, I'm going to design my own logo, and I'm going to speed it up so you can watch. And then if you're curious about designing more things in Inkscape, please reference the other video I have paired with this one on our resources sheet for this week. So this is the outcome of my logo. I have to say I'm not a big fan. I'm going to change it probably before the next video. However, I did want to note that we can export these files by going to our export tab on our right page, or we can hit File, Export, like so, and it'll bring up this tab. And then what we can do is we can select our icons, right, the total area of what we want to basically export. Make sure that we are on selection mode for exporting. And as you can see in this preview, we are only getting the text and the logo, which again, the logo looks like a piece of kale or spinach. I'm not a big fan. I need to change that. But for example's sake, we would export this. We could change the name to Mind Body Logo and click on this button here to find our folder, which would be our Code Foundry resources folder. And I would actually recommend creating a new folder here, which you could do with this button here, that will hold all of your company's resources, and then moving the color scheme over to that same folder. But we can export this way as a PNG, as an SVG, or as a JPEG. And so if you want to export it that way, go ahead and you can hit that save button or the export button down here, and it will save that image. So that is the way that you use Inkscape to build logos and other SVG images. What I recommend is creating logos in a bunch of different formats. For example, this logo shows up great on a white background, but if we were to use a black background, for example, which would look something like this, oh, it's not that, but with a black background behind it, it would be a little bit more difficult to see. So make sure that you have a variation of logos that highlight both the icon, the text, and accommodate to different color schemes. That will be the end of this video. Please watch the video on how to use Inkscape itself, and that will hopefully round you out skill-wise for developing logos and icons in Inkscape. Thank y'all, and see y'all on Monday for class.